Hello and welcome to Food Nutrition and Wellness. Today we're going to talk about intuitive eating, so stay tuned, we'll be right back. Hello everyone, thanks for watching us at Food Nutrition and Wellness. My name's Dwayne Rigsby, Dan Remley here. Dan, we're talking about intuitive eating. Now, you're going to have to help me with this one. I can barely say the word intuitive.
It's kind of a big word.
What is intuitive eating, and we'll get into a little bit of it.
Yeah, it's a little simpler idea than what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. It's really not what we eat, but how we eat. So it gets into our eating behaviors.
Okay.
And so for many of us who struggle with weight issues, it's sort of like thinking about eating too much at certain times, mm-hmm. or eating when we're not hungry, or even it kind of applies to skipping diets or skipping meals and getting too hungry and then overeating. So it's being really intuitive with your hunger, mm-hmm. and also your fullness, and not overeating or not not waiting till you're starving and ravenous.
Okay.
So it's sort of a mindset.
Yeah. So is that like nibbling, I guess? So you want to eat multiple times, more than the 3 times throughout the day, or is
perhaps if that's if you're in tune with your body, and your hunger and your fullness, and that's the way that that's as long as you're eating when you're moderately hungry, and then you stop eating when you're moderately full. And so, as long as you're never starving, that's okay. But if you're only eating 3 meals a day too, and you're not overeating or undereating, that's okay as well. So everybody's a little bit different. Everybody has different lifestyles and that type of thing. So let me ask you a personal question. I guess you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit over these podcasts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have kids at home? I never knew your family.
I have a 16-year-old.
16-year-old. Okay, so he was young, or she was young? Was young at some point?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, do you ever remember times at the dinner table where maybe she wasn't eating her green beans or something like that? And then how did you handle that situation as a parent?
Oh, that's a toughie. Actually, when she was young, she liked them. She ate, it seems like kids would eat green beans or veggies when they were younger. And then as they got to that 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, they're like, no, bad, that's bad. So and now they're kind of rolling back to that. So they're like, oh yeah, we should be eating that now.
So let me rephrase this question. Was there ever a time where she might not have eaten a full meal, or maybe your wife was frustrated, maybe she was picky about certain foods? Whether or not be green beans, but other types of things. Okay, then how did you handle that situation?
Well, what we did was we didn't force her to eat. We didn't. I feel that we don't want to force anyone to eat. I think you would eat if you were hungry. You would eat. So that's my opinion.
Well, that's the right response. Actually,
is that the right response? So always they said to always clean up your plate. That was years ago. That was when I was a kid.
Right.
You should clean up your plate and all that stuff. And I'm not. I think that's probably not the best idea. I think you should, just like you said, just eat until you're full. Well, if there's some on the plate, I understand we may be wasting food, but maybe we can. A lot of times we'll cover it up and throw it in the fridge and have it later or something.
You just defined intuitive eating right there.
Yeah, look at that. I'm an intuitive person.
So, as a parent, and if you have a 4-year-old or a young child, you have 3 options. If your kid's not eating, and maybe they don't want to eat, so you can either say, hey, you go to bed and you're not gonna get any more food the rest of the night. You can have them sit there until they clean their plate, and I grew up in the clean plate club. My parents were kind of like that. You sit there until you finish your food. Or you can excuse them, and like you said, you can if you're concerned about food waste, you can put the food in the refrigerator, you know, or you could compost it and offer other healthy choices. Put the food in the refrigerator, and when they're hungry, they can come back and they can have that food. But it turns out that kids are actually more intuitive than adults are a lot of times. Just kind of how you were describing.
Yeah, I think
very young kids are very intuitive about their likes and dislikes and if they're hungry or not. And then so sometimes, unfortunately, we as adults sort of impose some of our values on kids, and we're not intuitive ourselves in terms of our eating. So we need to be mindful. And so sometimes as adults, you know, we're not intuitive, and we sort of lose this sense of hunger and fullness. And so
I agree.
You mentioned the Clean Plate Club, and it's important to recognize the Clean Plate Club. And a lot of us grew up in the Clean Plate Club. Our parents said, you know, Dan, you need to sit down, finish your plate because there's kids starving in Africa. When that is true, there are kids that are starving in Africa. But the problem with the Clean Plate Club is that it might promote overeating, and so that's really what we want to avoid.
I understand that. Yeah, I mean, it certainly makes sense that you know, you would only eat until you feel full, but yet there's still food on your plate, so you got to eat more. It's like, no, I don't want to. And then you're miserable for the next 3 or 4 hours.
Right, and that's so
what do you do about that?
That's so detrimental to our health too, because as you know, consuming too many calories promotes insulin resistance, diabetes, obesity, and that type of thing. But you know, we eat for a lot of reasons, not just for hunger and fullness. Sometimes we eat to cope with our emotions.
Oh yeah.
So if we're really stressed, you know, we might really crave something sweet, for example, or if we're bored. I mean, maybe we're just driving down the road and we just need something to munch on, or watching TV. That's called mindless eating. So that's like sitting down at the TV with like a bag of chips, and then you eat one chip, and you gotta have another.
You just can never stop at one.
It's a habit. So it's really important to recognize those triggers and know that, you know, that's mindless eating. That's something that we really want to avoid. And we really need to make sure that we're eating to satisfy our hunger. And eat to the point where we're not overstuffed too. So
how does one look at that and try to correct that, Dan?
Well, there is a scale out there, and there are lots of books about intuitive eating. You can do like a Google search. And I would recommend ones written by registered dietitians. So there are ways. There's an intuitive eating scale where you can sit down every time you eat something. You can circle like where you are on the hunger satiety scale. So you kind of want to be like, if you want to be moderately hungry. If you think about scale from 1 in terms of hunger to you know, you're full, to like a scale of 7 to being ravenous. You kind of want to be in the middle, right? And so you want to try to stay, you know, between 6 and 7 on the scale, and when it comes to hunger. So on the flip side is that you don't want to wait. You don't want to skip meals too, because then you become ravenous. And in fact, some people who skip breakfast and lunch and they'll snack, they'll consume more calories at dinner time. They'll eat a whole plate or go back and get another plate or more. You know? So you kind of want to stay in the middle in terms of that hunger satiety scale when you're consuming food. So that's one thing, is just to try to become aware of your hunger and your fullness. And the other thing is eating quickly too. That's my family. I remember my mom getting really frustrated because I do remember my people in my family would eat really quickly. In fact, sometimes we'd have a race to see. My dad would like put his hands up in the air when he's finished.
Really?
My mom would sit down and we'd be finished, you know, and she'd get so frustrated. She prepared this meal and we'd be done. And we do live in a fast food culture, so sometimes you know, we get food, we get fast food, and we're eating in the car. We eat quickly because we need to be somewhere. The problem with that type of lifestyle is that when we eat quickly, it takes a while for our brains to signal that our bodies that we're full and we don't need any more food. So if you eat quickly, you consume more calories because your fullness, your satiety signals aren't going off in your brain. So you consume more calories, you know, than what you need. I have that problem. If I have a low blood sugar with my diabetes, I tend to overeat, and so I try to intentionally just eat small portions rather than overeat, because then I have a spike in my blood sugars. So that's my brain, you know, that's my brain working there.
Does that help you, Dan, if you just ate little bits throughout the day? Just had little snacks, if you would?
Yeah, and especially if healthy snacks, too.
Yeah,
so it's okay to be mindless if you're eating healthy, like apples and fruits and vegetables, and just carrying. I know a lot of people that carry fruits and vegetables and nuts and healthy foods. That's better than the cookies, cakes, chips, and candies. So we need to eat more of those foods. So yeah, in terms of, if you're going to eat snack and snack in front of the TV, those are better choices.
Right.
But the problem is we get into those other types of foods and we just eat mindlessly. I do also want to address weight loss diets. And there's a lot of extreme diets out there. And I don't recommend dieting in general. I think the weight loss culture is problematic. There is research that suggests about 95% of all diet attempts fail in the long run.
I agree, yeah.
And there's this yo-yo dieting effect that's been well documented in the literature. So this is when people go on diets, they lose weight very rapidly, and then they gain it right back.
Yes.
It's a yo-yo. And so what happens is when you restrict calories, your body's like a thermostat. Slows down your metabolism. Eventually, you can't keep up this lifestyle. You can only restrict calories for a certain amount of time, and then you go back to your normal eating pattern. By that time, your metabolism slows down. Your body's more efficient at converting glucose to fats, for example, or calories to fat, and so you gain the weight right back, and sometimes you gain more weight back, and so it's really harmful long term. And so it gets back into that intuitive eating, making sure that you're aware of your hunger and your fullness, and when you go on these diets, you're just throwing that all out the window, and that leads to a lot of detrimental health problems.
I understand.
I do think that you can be healthy at any size too, and I think it gets into people appreciating and loving their bodies, and really focusing on health behaviors. That's the important thing. When weight loss is the focus, and sometimes weight loss can be the motivator for health behaviors, but you have to be smart about it. If it's 5% weight loss, that's probably what most clinicians say is okay. But when you get into 20, 30% weight loss, that's not always a healthy thing for people over the long run because of those reasons. So I do think you can be healthy at any size as long as you're physically active and you're eating healthy foods, your 5 fruits and vegetables a day. But people get just way too focused on body shape and size.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Unrealistic expectations. We've got a culture of eating disorders, especially with our teens, as you probably are aware of. And so that's something that we all have to work on in this culture. And there's so much pressure to look a certain way and to be a certain way, not only at home but at work and
at school, everything. School,
there's lots of pressure on people to look a certain way and be a certain way. So I do encourage people to focus on the health behaviors, set realistic goals in terms of your physical activity and your eating, but not to get too bogged down by the weight issue.
Okay. So as we go along and we get older, Dan, how much does this affect us as we get older?
Sure. Well,
obviously teens, they'll eat just nibble, just because, like you said, the way people want to look. But as we get older, we need more protein or things like that in our diet.
Well, as we get older, our metabolism slows down. And so the way I like to talk about metabolism, you think about like a campfire, okay? So everybody has a different metabolism, okay? So if you think about a campfire, a person with a high metabolism has like a huge bonfire, And you think about stick. If a stick represents like calories, or food that you eat, you throw the stick into the fire, what happens? Into a big fire, what happens? It burns up. Now, some people have small fires, right? You throw a stick into the small fire, does it burn as quickly?
No.
It
sits there and smolders.
It sits there and smolders, and so that's analogous to our bodies, right? So as we get older, our big bonfires that we had as kids get smaller and smaller. But we're still eating. We're still throwing the same.
We're throwing that same amount of food.
Sometimes bigger sticks in the fire, and so that's the problem that we have as we get older. And so We can do one or two things. Physical activity is one way to sort of stoke the fire, right?
Okay.
So just like you're fanning the fire, when you're physically active, when you're lifting weights, when you're out there walking, that's one way we can stoke that fire. We can fan those flames, keep metabolism up. And that includes aerobic, walking, jogging, tennis, where we get our heart rate up, but also includes anaerobic, lifting weights.
Okay.
So trying to incorporate those types of things. And then eating. Of course, we need, we don't need as many calories, really. And so that's another way that we can actually keep our metabolism pretty high. That's the analogy of the stick, right? We can throw, we don't need as much. Our metabolisms are getting
smaller.
Yeah, we don't have the same metabolisms. Our fires are smaller. We don't need as large as sticks.
Right. So we don't need to be eating that big steak. We could throw a couple of twigs in there, whether it's some nuts or grains or something like that.
Or some foods.
I'm using real analogies here.
Right. So the smaller sticks are included the fruits and the vegetables and those foods that are lower in calories or more nutrient dense. We need to eat more of those, and less the cookies, cakes, chips, and candies, and ice cream and things like that. If we do eat those foods, they need to be maybe like one serving. Pay attention to serving sizes. So when you have a big bag of chips, look at the serving size. 17 chips is a serving. Count out those 17
chips and eat them.
Put them in a bowl.
And that's it.
Put
the bag away before you even start that.
And here's another thing too, I think this would be helpful. Eat slowly. So eat those chips slowly, savor, use all your senses. In fact, we used to teach this intuitive eating class in Missouri, and we would put a Hershey's Kiss in front of all the class participants. And we would not tell them what we wanted them to do with the Hershey's Kiss. Some people would just gobble it up and without thinking about it. Other people might look at it, and they might, they might eat it really slowly. But we would encourage people to think, hey, this is the Hershey's Kiss. But savor it, use all your senses, eat it slowly, because you eat it fast and mindlessly, then you want more, right? So you didn't really, it's like my dog, I'll throw out a
treat or whatever. It's gone. Like
she doesn't, So we want to avoid that. And we want to really slow down, use all our senses, appreciate the flavor, and not eat too quickly. Because as I said, it takes a while for our brains to say, hey, you're full.
I've done that as a test myself and try to, take your time, and it seems like you eat way less in the long run when you're just taking your time and eating real slow and like you said, enjoying it. As I've grown older, I guess I enjoy eating my food more. It's like, oh, that's good. It's like, take your time. It's enjoy that flavor.
And not put as much food on your plate. Right. If you want more, then you go up and you get some more. But I think we do need to eat the foods that we like, and not to I'm not a big fan of any type of restrictive diet at all. And
just even
with diabetes, the old myth was you can't have any sugar. Well, throw that out the window, because people with diabetes can have sugar just in moderation. Because then what happens when you restrict it, you crave it more and more, and so then you have a binge, and that's not a good thing either.
Absolutely.
So just sort of a summary of things that we can do so that we can have we can eat intuitively and I think have healthier lives and better health outcomes in terms of this. So we want to avoid distracted eating, and so we'd encourage family meals, because when we eat in front of the TV, for example, we tend to eat more. So the family meals are really important, and November is there's a one day of that month is a dine-in, which is like it's just we're trying to get families to eat together. Lots of research supporting that the idea that people that have more family meals together actually eat healthier. Kids who are exposed to family meals have less risky behavior. So that's something that we can do. I think as families, we can have family meals together, and it might not be. We're busy. Not every night is a family meal night, but try to work in 2 or 3 nights a week, or set a goal where you try to eat together as a family for a lot of different reasons. Communication, the healthfulness, all that type of thing. And then trying to eat slowly during these family meals too. So the second point, we've talked about this, is avoid these extreme weight loss. You really break free of that cycle if you're on that. The weight loss industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. They want you to buy their products. There isn't any scientific evidence that any diet really works in the long run. You know, everybody's different, so but just be careful of that, and don't get too focused on weight. Focus on your behaviors. Focus on physical activity goals. Set realistic goals for yourself, and try to maintain those goals.
I agree.
Any behavior change that you set needs to be a lifestyle change. So it's not something you're going to do over the week or a couple months. It's got to be something that you're going to maintain through the lifestyle. So weight loss. Get rid of the weight loss mentality. Focus on the behaviors. And again, you know, children watch you. Your kids. Your grandkids. They watch what you do. And so if you're on a weight loss diet, that could promote eating disorder. That could promote unhealthy attitudes for them as well about weight. And then I think that breakfast is really important, and the research suggests this. Now, it doesn't really matter when you eat breakfast, as long as you're, again, responding to and being intuitive about what you eat, eating healthily. But the breakfast is you're breaking your fast. So you have overnight, you're not eating anything. So that first meal really is important. And then mentioned slowing down, and so some other tips that I have here for slowing down: putting your utensils down between bites. You know, that's something just to. I mean, I'm not saying you have to do that all the time. A little bit of practice, right? Just to slow down. And then making sure you pay attention to your hunger and fullness. It could be like on a scale where you circle your hunger and your fullness. And then paying attention to your emotional eating. So find other health behaviors to cope with your emotional. If you're stressed, you know, maybe go out for a walk, or maybe you could replace food with a snack, such as fruit or vegetables. So those are just some pointers. We've already kind of talked about those, but I just wanted to point those out to you again.
And this, the information you got here, Dan, is this just available on the web somewhere?
Yeah. So
excuse me.
We had a program at the University of Missouri Extension when I was there. It was called A New You, and you can type that in. There's also, if you go online, there are resources out there. I would caution that you look for the EDU, the education, the extension land grant, any resource from land grant universities has some evidence to it. Also, if it's like an organization too, sometimes there's like the American Heart Association has good information about diet, nutrition, and that type of thing. But really, be very cautious about companies that are trying to sell you a weight. I mean, I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff out there. That's just that nutritionists and dietitians just kind of roll their eyes at, and be very cautious about some of the information that you see on the web. I mean, I'm not going to get into all the diets and things like that, but yeah, there's some nutty ones out there, and I would say probably 95% of those, a lot of the weight loss plans don't work. You know, they're just not helpful. Any type of restrictive weight loss plan doesn't work in the long run. Sure, you might lose weight, and you know they might guarantee you're going to have rapid weight loss, and sure, you know, it might work. It might work for a couple weeks. Or a month.
Because you're probably starving yourself.
And hey,
in the long run.
If you want to look good for a wedding, you know, fine.
I guess a quick,
But I'm just saying, over long haul, it's not really going to help you. So look for the education. If you look at if you see a URL like on your website, the .edu sites, the .org, CDC, I'm thinking, you know, those are very good sites. They're reliable. It's reliable information. WebMD's okay, but just be careful. You don't. The .coms are the ones I'm wary of.
Sometimes they're questionable, but you never know. There's some out there that are good.
Well,
too,
honestly, everybody's different, and so somebody could get on some crazy weight loss diet and manage it and do well. So, you know, the one size shoe doesn't fit all. But I'm speaking in terms of public health, and for most people, they don't work. You know, that's what the evidence shows us.
So I'm going to ask one more question, Dan. We're getting close on time. Back to the breakfast.
Yeah.
So I'm a big breakfast person.
Yeah, good.
it doesn't seem like I can't go without breakfast. If I miss breakfast for some reason, it's like my day's off the rest of the day. It just not feel right. You almost feel sick in a way. So when a person's like that, does that mean that maybe you've got some other issues, or do you just think that some people just miss breakfast completely?
Yeah.
But some people absolutely have to have breakfast. If I have breakfast, I could miss lunch altogether and just right on, because I think breakfast fills me up.
Right. It gives you energy to propel you through
all the way down to that 3 or 4 o'clock, and then have maybe an early supper. Is that? It may not be recommended, but do you feel that may be okay?
I think so. I think if you're in, again, it gets into intuitive eating, what you want to avoid, though, is eating too much at dinner time.
Yeah.
So if you feel like you're overeating, eating too much at dinner, and you've got that fullness feeling, that's not a good thing, and maybe you need to think about some snacks. And it's okay too to have a few healthy snacks in between that breakfast and dinner, too. And if that helps, that's just I'm speaking only if you have this issue at dinner time.
Yeah.
I think breakfast is we naturally we crave. I crave juice, for example, because my blood sugars might be a little bit lower. Yeah. And maybe the same would be with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's we're responding to our bodies. We're being intuitive that way, and that's what you want to do.
I guess one more question to breakfast. A lot of people sometimes have to, they wake up and they may have to, be awake an hour or 2 or whatever before they eat. Some people can eat just right then, as soon as they get up.
Right.
Is that, if you eat just as soon as you get up, is there any kind of scientific evidence, or is there anything to say as soon as you wake up you eat? Is that good or bad?
I am not aware of. I don't know.
There's no time.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
It's just whenever you feel like you're ready.
Whenever you feel like I would. That's probably I would hedge on that response there.
All right.
Yeah. So.
Because it seems like I want to have breakfast pretty quickly after I get up, because like you said, you go to bed late, or you go to bed, and if you have an early supper, that's a long time. So I think that's probably the case with me. Sometimes our supper may be 7 o'clock, but most of the time, it might be 6 or somewhere in that range.
And I would say too, it is good to have a little bit of protein and carbohydrates. So it's like a piece of meat, because not a lot of fat, because fatty foods kind of delay the absorption of glucose, but the protein can help with your fullness throughout the day. It kind of you kind of want to have that steady state of blood glucose, and you don't want to get too low, and then your hunger signals kick in pretty quickly there. But so having a little bit mix of protein and carbohydrate, and for example, like a peanut butter and toast, would be something that would kind of keep you going, keep you steady there. So that's trying to have a variety of foods can be helpful too. And again, you want to avoid sort of I'm thinking about diabetes, the peaks and valleys in terms of the blood sugars and things like that. But kind of you want to shoot for that steady state, and protein can be helpful that way too.
Well, Dan, our time has come to an end. It's a good conversation. I always love talking about this stuff. So until next time, Dan will have us another great topic, and we'll see everyone next month.